ArtTV with Mr. McLean. Episode 2. Found Object Sculpture.
You thought I was crazy for saving all this stuff.
Alright, Mr. McLean, relax. Traditional sculpture materials are the things that you would think that sculptures would be made out of, like clay or wood. Found objects, on the other hand, are things that were never meant to be turned into sculptures, like all the things that you can see in this stop-motion animation. We'll learn more about stop-motion in another episode. Here, you can see some of the supplies that I've saved for my found object sculpture. After these supplies get organized, we'll check back in to see how this found object sculpture is going to get started. But now, we need to talk about the artist, Marcel Duchamp. He was a French artist, born in 1887. He was one of the first artists to use found objects in his art. To create one of his most famous sculptures, Duchamp simply went to the hardware store, bought a men's toilet, put it on a table, and called it Fountain. He called his found object sculptures ready-mades. This type of art was a way for Duchamp to show that he wasn't happy with the art world, that he thought too many artists were just making pretty things, trying to please the eye. Duchamp thought art should challenge the mind instead. How do you feel about Duchamp's ready-made found object sculpture? Do they challenge your mind to think about these objects in a different way? Or are they, as many people thought in his time, simply ridiculous? That's for you to decide. Whoa, look at all those dried out markers. Stay tuned till the end of the episode to see how this found object sculpture turns out.
Now let's try to make our own found object ready-made sculptures. First, I need to look around to see what objects I can use. Perfect. Once you've finished your ready-made, go ahead and take a picture before it falls apart. Here's another ready-made sculpture that I made. Make sure that you're not using materials that'll break if they fall apart. Definitely no glass. Alright, now it's time for you to find your own found objects for your ready-made sculpture.
So now go ahead and find some objects that are interesting to you. Put them on a table, a shelf, or a counter. Arrange them just so. Take a picture. There. You just made a found object ready-made sculpture. Remember to email me a picture of your ready-made so I can put your artwork in the next episode of ArtTV. Now let's hear from some of our artist friends to see what types of found objects they collect and use in their art.
This ring is made out of nuts. I ate a lot of pistachios, maybe one big walnut at the bottom. I drilled some holes, filed a little space from my finger, threaded some shells together, and painted a design with a tiny paintbrush, and created a crazy little sculpture.
One of my first series with found object series of paintings were on these Japanese playing cards I came across while I was living in Japan. Then I started working on computer chips, doing paintings on computer chips. My most recent work with found objects has been transforming a group of books into quadcopters, into sort of drones.
I collect old photographs. A lot of them are black and white. I also collect old pieces of plastic, like from medicines or cookies or bubble wrap. Another thing is I live by the beach, so I often collect things I find there, like pieces of driftwood or pieces of plastic like bottle caps or little pom-poms, all different things that I find at the beach, including shells every now and then.
Now let's learn about an artist that I discovered while researching this episode of ArtTV with Mr. McLean. One of the many things that Vanessa German is known for are her found object sculptures, sometimes called assemblages. They're often made of materials that she finds in abandoned buildings and lots. Her art deals with serious issues like violence, racism, and other forms of injustice. She is what she calls a citizen artist, or to put it another way, an artist who's doing what she can for her community. She created the Art House, which is an open space where kids, women, and families can come to make art, and it's always open. Can you recognize any of the found objects in German's striking sculptures? Back to our other found object sculpture. Now, I'm using hot glue to put this together. If you want to make a sculpture using found objects and hot glue, you need to have an adult using the hot glue with you. I repeat, you must have an adult using the hot glue with you. Okay, this sculpture is coming together. I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to turn out. But now, let's take a look at one of my favorite artists. Jim Gary was a sculptor from Florida. He's best known for his found object sculptures of dinosaurs, made from abandoned car, truck, and bus parts. Wow, look at that giant plesiosaur floating in the imaginary ocean. It's amazing. The sculpture is finished being glued. Now I have to decide whether I want to paint it. I do like how the found objects look without paint, but I'm a painter, so I'm going to paint it. It's a bit of a risk though, because it might not look as good as it did when the found objects weren't painted. But you should always be taking risks with your art. Otherwise your work will never grow or become more interesting. Now, here it is. I'm not quite happy with how the paint job came out, so I'll have to go back and work on it later. But it's finished for now. Before we go, let's take a look at some of this artwork by artists from Woodrow Wilson Elementary School in Binghamton, New York. Oh yeah, and here's the sculpture song.
Sculpture. There are many different types of sculpture. There's in the round and relief. One's made from found objects, and one's made from clay. One's made from stone, one's made from paper mache. Sculpture. Art that's not flat, art that's 3D, art that's not flat, art that's 3D. Sculpture.
ArtTV with Mr. McLean.